Okay, so recently I came across like a story about a baby monkey called named Punch in Japan. And so this monkey was abandoned by his groups in when he was young, and then he was left alone. But instead of being alone, he was attached to a stuffed toy. So he seeked the stuffed toy for connection, for comfort and emotional bonds. So then it got me thinking that even animals look for connection. Are humans really that different? Because even though we crave independence, we naturally seek connections also. So that's what we'll be exploring today, attachment style. So attachment style refers to the different ways people form emotional bonds, relationship with others that is usually shaped by their early experiences. So it is important to know about this topic because during adolescence, it influences how individuals manage their emotions, navigate their relationships and cope with stress. So joining us today, we have Nadiah, an early childhood educator who works closely with children. And through her experience, she observed children's daily interaction, how they respond to emotions and build relationships. So instead of looking at these topics from a theoretical perspective, we'll be focusing more on how these patterns show up in real-life experience with children. So hi Nadiah, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we begin, can you briefly share what your role is and what kind of children do you usually work with?
Okay, I'm a preschool teacher and I've been working in the same center for the past 4 years. I've had the wonderful opportunity to take over this particular class for the past 3 years. So this year, my current class will be graduating and my children all have different personalities. They come from very different families and they have their own interesting personalities. So all of them are very, very different.
Okay, then in your experience, how do children usually behave when they are comfortable or when they are safe in the classroom? Like what are the common behaviors you actually observe?
Usually if the children are very comfortable and if they feel safe, they are very okay with exploring the different materials in the environment. They will be using all the materials that we have. They will choose to do coloring, or sometimes they ask for permission to play toys. They will ask each other questions and there's a lot of interactions going on. I think the children are still figuring out how to communicate with one another. Then sometimes when they face disagreements or if a child snatches another person's toy, they are very comfortable with coming up to the teachers and asking for help. They're like, oh, my friend is taking this from me, what can I do? Or can you help me with this?
That's really interesting how they'll come to you when they're comfortable, they won't feel shy about it. Yeah. So like according to research, right, we found out that children's early relationships experience are interlinked with how they manage their emotions. So based on your experience, what are like some common reaction children display when they feel upset, frustrated or anxious?
In most children, they would be crying when they feel upset, or they will let out their frustrations by shouting because that's a very natural impulse for them. Sometimes they will shout at the person they are upset with, or sometimes they would clench their face and they will just shout very loudly. In other children who are more reserved, sometimes they might walk away and then they might engage in other comfort-seeking behaviors, such as squeezing something or getting your water bottle to drink. These are some of the examples that we teach children how to manage their feelings. What's the question again?
What are the common reactions they display when they are like upset or frustrated?
In certain children who are more shy, they would be bottling up their feelings. Then sometimes it gets to a point where at the end of the day, if they have experienced enough discomfort, that's when they let it out big time and they throw a tantrum, such as crying on the floor, kicking things.
So most of them have different reactions. They respond differently when they need comfort and security assurance out there. That's really interesting. Then what are some like differences you have noticed between children? Like they are able to easily seek help as compared to those that are more reserved.
I think it really depends on their personality. For the children who are very confident of themselves, they are the ones asking their friends for help, or like they're asking teachers about the questions that they have. For those who are more reserved, they are the ones usually observing the environment and the people first. Then after a while, maybe after days if they are new, that's when they'll feel more comfortable in like talking or interacting with people, or with a bit of encouragement from the teacher and us modeling like how can we ask questions. We will teach them the specific words and be like, oh, what do you think of this? I see this. And then usually the other child will respond in turn.
So like what kind of factors do you think help like make them feel more comfortable? Is it like the teachers, the environment they live in, or like?
I think the environment just play a very important part. When the children know that there's someone there who's willing to support them, and they know that most of the time their interactions will be responded to, then that's when they feel more comfortable speaking and sharing.
Oh, so like environment really plays a part. Like it's an important part. Like it influences how children will react. Like how they slowly develop and grow to react to seek help. That's really nice. Then based on your experiences, right? What are the differences in the way children seek help and comfort or attention from adults in school, and how can this be seen in like their behaviors?
Usually for help-seeking behaviors, they usually just ask questions. But for those who are more shy or they don't have the language to use, that's where the teachers will come and model that certain language. Like, oh, can you help me with this? I need help in this. Then a lot of the times, when they first learn it, they might not be able to use that particular language. They just need a bit more reminders and prompting. So we need to model it for them in that instance. Sometimes what helps in the more reserved children, we tell them that, oh, if you say this, your friend might not respond in turn, or your friend might do this instead.
Do they learn more of this through like story times or like through gestures and like real life experiences?
There needs to be a lot of real life experiences. Then whenever we read a social story, we talk about, oh, like what is the good and what is the bad. If, for example, a certain character does something wrong, we will discuss what can that character do instead. Or if that character is doing something right, we talk about the positive effects. And then the children will respond like, how do you feel towards that? So with a very group consensus in what the good characteristics and behaviors are. Those are the ones that they will remind one another to do. Like, oh, it's good to ask for help, or it's good to keep things after you're done.
That's really interesting. Then can you share like a memorable experience that you have observed a child slowly develop more confident and be more comfortable when interacting with others over time?
Talking about a specific child, this child came to us when she was 4 years old, and she hadn't attended preschool or any type of social setting prior to that. So when she first came, she was crying almost every day when she came to school because she's not used to being away from her parents. So every day she came and she would just cry. Usually she'll sit at the corner of the classroom. Then after just getting her used to the environment and getting her used to the routines, getting her ready to follow instructions, and then trying to pair her up with the more comfortable and confident peers. Then slowly she started interacting with them. Then now, after a lot of group discussions, after a lot of modeling and her trying her best to interact in different situations, she's one of the children who readily share her ideas. But it took quite a long time for her to come out of her shell.
So it's because she was more attached to her parents.
She was not more attached, and I think naturally she is a more reserved kind of person. So recently, it was her birthday a month ago, and she didn't want to celebrate her birthday in class. Instead, she called some of her close friends, and then they had a play date at her house instead. So she preferred that celebration to be done in her house instead of a school.
Like a safer environment for her. Like she feels more comfortable in that environment. That's really interesting. Then, what do you think actually helped shifted this behavior, like make this change happen, like help her grow?
I think it's a combination of factors. For one, her friends and teachers really encouraged her to speak more, and we told her that, hey, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this? Or what do you want to do? Once she started to feel that her voice was heard, and that's when she started to feel that, hey, maybe I can talk. Then she started sharing a bit more. But she is naturally the more quiet type. So in a lot of situations where she's trying something new, that's when she observes first. But after she thinks that she can do it, or if it's a skill that touches, if it's an activity that touches on a skill that she already knows or she has the ability to do, she's more confident in doing that.
So it's more of like the initiative people give to like bring her in to help her feel more secure in this environment and everything.
Yeah, secure and supported.
Yeah. So this is really insightful. Like it shows how like with the right support that children can their emotional connection can grow and develop and like make them feel more comfortable in a new environment, new settings. That's really interesting. Then based on like our research, right, we found out that the environment children grow up in, like the increased use of screen times, technology, like all these kind of devices like makes an influence like the way they make connections, correct? So like do you think the usage of technology such as more iPad time and like less face-to-face interaction with friends and parents and family members at home, do you think it influences the way children interact with their peers in school?
I think it really depends on what kind of content the child consumes and how the adults around the child explains what he or she is consuming. So there are certain children who are a bit more mature in their thinking. They will consume a certain type of content. For example, the 6-7 thing that's been going on, right? Then they will bond over it. But after they bond over it, or like they say that specific phrase, then they will move on to other activities together as a group. So in a way, certain things online, they can help to bond the children. However, there are certain children who consume this type of materials and their parents don't talk to them about the negative effects about it. So they would consume this type of material, and that's when they learn this particular language. So when they like the language to communicate with others or seek help and just have conversations with others, those are the children that feel more left behind. So there's a particular child that consumed a lot of content online. He watched a lot of YouTube, a lot of cartoons, but when it comes to interacting with his friends and teachers in school, a lot of the times he would just scream for attention, or he would scream because he doesn't know what to do. So his natural response would be like, ah! And he feels discomfort in any situation.
It's like, could it be like cause of like when he watched these YouTube videos, that's how they respond?
That's how they respond, and no one explained to him, instead of doing this, maybe you can do this instead, or explain to him why that character responded in such a manner in that situation. So with a lack of understanding on the different situations these type of behaviors happen, this is something that he learned to imitate instead.
So they learn to, the exposure of such technology, such contents teaches him like that's the correct behavior. He assumes that that's the correct behavior because he's not taught, he's not corrected. That's really interesting. Then what are some supports you think families can help to ensure a balanced usage of like technologies and like face-to-face interaction? Because I'm assuming that in school you won't really like allow children to have like screen times, or like it is a controlled, like it's only for like certain reasons, right? It's more face-to-face interactions in school.
In a lot of centers in Singapore, from what I understand, they usually only get 15 minutes of screen time to watch certain educational videos or maybe video stories, and then that's the maximum amount of screen time that they get in a day. Then usually those type of videos are the more educational type, so they tell the children about certain information or facts, and they'll have discussions about it. So those particular media serve a very educational purpose. But for children who like to consume a lot of media, if it's monitored by the adults, and the children are the type to share about what they consume and what they see, and the parents are the type to have conversations with them to help them understand what they are watching, or maybe explain the language that they are using. Sometimes they pick up specific language, sometimes it's curse words, and if they naturally say that at home, usually the parents would teach them, oh, this is not a good word to use. In this situation, you should not be saying that. With a lot of exposure and repetition from the parents, and if it happens in school, the teachers will correct them. That's when they learn that, okay, maybe I need to not say this in this setting. So this is where they learn this type of positive social cues.
So it's more of like, so it's really important to like have parents to reinforce like the good habits and like the what teacher teach in school, like to correct them, the correct behavior, the correct way to communicate, and like understand the content. That's what like reinforce like children's. That's really interesting.
Children of that age, they intend to mimic a lot of the things that you see. And if they don't understand the good and the bad and the certain scenarios that this is acceptable or this is not acceptable, then it's very natural for them to just mimic. That's what they do.
Yeah, because they're still growing, so that's like they're absorbing everything they see in the environment and everything. So it's really interesting how like the environment they grow up in like influence and shapes the way they seek attention, they understand the contents and everything. Wow. Okay, now then before we move on to our last question, let's play like a short activity. Okay? So I'll say like a few statements, and like based on your experience, you tell me whether like you agree or you disagree with this statement. Okay? So for our first statement we have is that children who always seek attention are just being difficult in whatever they are doing. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree to a certain extent. Sometimes the children learn that if they shout enough, like if they shout loud enough, or if they keep asking and demanding for specific things, that's when the adult will respond to them. So for these specific children, and in these specific instances of maybe the adults not paying enough attention to them, that's when they do certain behaviors that will attract attention. But in a lot of other cases, the children just don't know the type of language to use or what to say or do in that particular instance.
Oh, do you think could it be because they're insecure? Or like,
That is one thing. Usually when the children don't feel safe enough, they would react. They will either shout or they run away, or they're just not listening to an adult who's trying to help them in that specific instance. Usually when they are shouting, the adults around them would react to them. So if they learn the words to say, and we teach them in other situations, like when we read stories and we talk about, oh, in this situation what can we do instead, that's a very proactive strategy that the adults are teaching to the children. So that they know that in this situation, that instead of this, maybe I can do this. And in that moment, if they're reminded of that, they're more willing to turn to these positive behaviors instead of screaming, shouting, kicking, running away.
So it all lies up to them not knowing the correct way.
Yes.
They're not feeling safe in the environment, not comfortable yet. So yeah, that's imitating like the wrong behavior that they assume is correct.
But usually if they're in a secure environment, they will be more willing to attempt anything that someone else is suggesting. Because they know that, hey, maybe this one is helping me. Or hey, maybe if I try this, it might lead to a positive reaction.
That's true. Then now move on to our second statement. It is that when children don't ask for help, it means that they are really independent. Do you agree or do you disagree?
I disagree, because the very shy friends and the very reserved friends, they go unnoticed. Because sometimes the children will observe another friend doing this in that situation and they think that, oh, this is what I should do, and they copy maybe a craft, or they copy what their friend is doing if they don't remember the instructions that the teacher gave before that.
Yeah. So it could also be like they're unsure of like how to seek help, or like they don't feel or they don't feel safe. So they don't dare to reach out yet because they don't know what's the correct way, or like if they feel secure enough to go and reach out for help.
Yeah, and they're unsure of the reactions that they are going to receive. Maybe they are scared that, oh, teacher would scold them, or a friend would say, oh, it's too easy, how come you don't know?
Yeah, like this kind of like the fear of being judged, or like that discomfort, that negative emotion that they might feel, like just removes them, like discourages them to go and seek help. So it doesn't actually mean that they're independent, it's just there are many different factors that can influence it. Okay, then for our last statement, the amount of screen time affects how... Do you agree or disagree that the amount of screen time affects how children interact with others?
I think it does impact their language a lot. So the type of words that they use, and if they use whether they use Singlish or maybe proper English or maybe the American version of English, it does impact that, because that's the type of content that they are used to hearing. So that's how they would phrase their words, and that impacts the word choice that they use.
Do you think it's more of like a negative influence? Or could it be like a positive one, where if they learn like more educational contents, it helps them better, but like more of those negative contents, it's just teaching them all the bad behaviors, imitating the wrong behaviors and everything?
It really depends on the child and the family background. That's what I shared just now.
Yeah.
So how the media that they consume and how they internalize what they see based on the conversations that they have and how they are taught to approach certain situations if they do talk about it and share about it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's really interesting.
But a lot of the times, if the children are watching maybe educational content and if it's like a educational cartoon like maybe Wild Kratts or the Dr. Binoc show, then the children are really learning a lot.
Okay, so it does affect the way they interact with people, but you just have to make sure that they are having the right contents. Okay, now to end our interview, what are like some ways teachers or family members can do to help children feel more comfortable and supported?
Comfortable and supported. I think it's really being okay with letting them experience different type of situations and scenarios on their own. A lot of the times you are very quick to think that, hey, maybe my child might not feel confident in this, so they don't expose them to certain situations and scenarios. Or if they see their child struggling, that's when they will start to do things for them. But a lot of the times, the children are actually quite capable of observing and learning from the things that they see. And if we teach them the right vocabulary and tell them that, hey, maybe if you try this, it might lead to a positive type of reaction, they're capable of using the words and language.
So it's more of like being more open and like less protective of them, letting them be more open to explore, giving them like a safe and comfortable environment to really explore and do whatever they want, like be interested and be more interested in like the environment, be more explore and everything. That's really interesting.
I think it also helps them feel their own different types of emotions in different scenarios, so they can understand themselves better. And maybe in this situation, if there's a lot of people playing a certain toy, if I don't feel comfortable in approaching them, maybe I can do this instead. So it helps them feel certain things so that they can make better decisions for themselves in the future.
That's really interesting. I think that's all for our interview today. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Like, it has really been insightful to hear how like these patterns really show up in real life situations. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now that we've explored how children's behavior and emotional responses show up in real life settings through the interview with Nadiah, let's take a look at what the research has found about attachment and how it shapes emotional and social development with time. So according to this first article, Attachment Styles and Well-Being in Adolescence, how does emotional development affect this relationship? It examines the relationship between attachment and adolescents' emotional well-being, focusing on the role of emotional competencies. They wanted to find out more about how the relationship occurs and not just the link between attachment and well-being. They specifically explored if emotional skills such as recognizing emotions play a role in explaining the link. The study was conducted with over 1,200 adolescents between the ages of 12 and 15, where they completed a questionnaire that measured their attachment to both parents, emotional competencies, and various indicators of well-being such as stress and life satisfaction. From the findings, it showed that adolescents that reported having a more secure attachment relationship to theirs tend to have stronger emotional competencies. These were linked to more positive well-being outcomes, higher life satisfaction, and lower stress levels. Additionally, the findings showed that emotional competencies partially mediated the connection between attachment and well-being. This means that attachment influences well-being and contributes to the development of emotional skills, which will shape how they cope with challenges. Thus, the researchers concluded that emotional competencies play a mediating role in the relationship between parental attachment and adolescent well-being. These effects vary across different age and gender, with emotional competencies acting as a protective factor even when parental attachment is weak. And this links back to the interview with Nadiah, where she mentioned that children who feel safe and supported appear to be more comfortable in expressing their needs, seeking assistance, and regulating their emotions. For example, children who feel secure in the classroom would likely approach teachers for help, whereas those who are reserved would suppress their emotions, which might lead to a tantrum at the end of the day. This shows how early emotional experience shapes not only their behavior, but also how they regulate and express their emotions. This aligns closely to the article. And moving on to our second article, Relationship 2.0, a systematic review of associations between the use of social network sites and attachment style, looked at how attachment style is related to social network site use. It is a systematic review that explores how attachment style is related to the way individuals use social network sites. The researcher reviewed 17 studies and categorized social media usage into 3 different themes: the type of use, the motivation behind it, and the related outcome. Based on the findings, it showed that individuals with different attachment styles would use SNS in different ways. For example, those with anxious attachment were more likely to use SNS to seek reassurance, validation, and emotional support. They were more likely to post more and overshare while actively seeking feedback, whereas for those with avoidant attachment, engaged in more passive behaviors such as browsing online while maintaining emotional distance. Additionally, insecure attachments are linked to more unhealthy SNS behaviors such as depending on the online interactions to manage emotional needs. Thus, the researcher concluded that attachment style still influences the way individuals seek connection and manage their emotion even through online platforms. Even though this article did not focus on children, similar patterns can be observed in younger children when they consider their environment. According to Nadiah, she mentioned how children will often imitate behaviors they are exposed to, particularly through screen time. She gave an example where one of her students often consumed online content and would usually respond to challenges by screaming loudly. This behavior is not usually intentional, but it's something that the child learned through observing and imitating. And this reflects the idea from the article where individuals use different available environments to express their needs and manage their emotions. In this example, the child's behavior was a form of communication that was shaped by the environment they were exposed to. Nadiah also shared when adults explain and manage the content, children will be able to learn more appropriate ways to express themselves. This highlights the importance of both the caregiver and the environment. These 2 articles clearly show how attachment influences both the emotional process and social behavior in different ways. The first article focuses on the internal process such as emotional regulation and well-being, whereas the second article focuses on the external behaviors such as the way individuals interact and seek connection. And despite these differences, both articles highlight how attachment influences how people interact with their surroundings by regulating their emotions or relations to others, which indicates that attachment is not limited to only childhood and specific relationships, but it continues to shape behaviors across different development stages and contexts. One interesting aspect in this podcast is how the interview aligns closely with the research finding, even though Nadiah did not explicitly refers to attachment theory. The examples she gave of children's behavior such as seeking help, imitating others, and slowly becoming more confident reflects attachment-related patterns such as difference in emotional regulation and comfort with seeking support. Another similarity is the agreement that these behaviors are not fixed and can be changed. In the interview, Nadiah mentioned that a child she thought initially struggled with social interaction and separation with her parents, but with constant support and peer interaction in a structured environment, helped her become more confident. This reflects the respect findings that emotional skills can develop with the right support through attachment-related behaviors. The interview and research also highlight the role the environment play is very important. Nadiah mentioned in the interview that having supportive adults, modeling behaviors, and providing consistent responses will help children feel safe and be more confident in expressing themselves. Similarly, the research suggests that attachment is shaped through repeated interactions, where individuals learn if their needs are met. Additionally, the discussion on screen time with Nadiah showed how the modern environment can influence behavior, which reinforces the idea that children learn through imitation and observation. One key takeaway from both the interview and the research would be that behaviors are often linked to deeper emotional needs. For instance, when a child displays attention and seeking behaviors, it is not simply about being difficult, but it could also be the children's attempt to seek reassurance or even express unmet goals. This shifts the perspective from wanting to fix the behavior to understanding and supporting the emotions behind it. In real-world practice, this highlights the importance of creating a supportive and responsive environment for children. For parents and teachers, this means modeling appropriate behaviors and providing constant notional support and giving children opportunities to express themselves. It also suggests that simply decreasing screen time is not enough, as it is important to guide and contextualize what children are exposed to. Overall, both the research and the interview highlights that attachment is not just a theoretical concept, but something that is seen in everyday behaviors, emotional responses, and social interactions. With a better understanding of these patterns, it allows us to better support children in developing emotional security and building healthy relationships in the future. With that, that's the end of our podcast today about attachment style. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned more from it. Thank you.